So let's begin by asking you a question. Have you ever had a moment of embarrassment? I've had a lot. Once I had to send the final client report marking the whole leadership. My client's CEO name was Annie, and I wrote Hell Annie instead of Hello Annie. Another time, I had a neighbor. We had dinner together. His name was Ryan. After 3 months, I realized his name is Brad. His dog's name was Ryan. So, but we have a TEDx talk to deliver, so let's focus on that. Let me pull up the first slide and then I have a question for you. How many of you in the room have had more than that number in your board exams or high school? Very few. So this is my tribe. Okay. Because I had this. And the story that I'm going to tell you is about how I went from a 60% scorer, to becoming the chairperson of one of the most coveted organizations in the world. And how I went from being the backbencher, the last ranker, to making my program become number one globally. How I went from a little girl who was told that she would never be enough to this moment where I made my country proud in more than 80 countries. What I realized growing up, that the ingredient for all of these things was courage. What is courage? Courage is often not inside or born inside. It is not a feeling. It is an acquired behavior. It is not the absence of fear. It is your ability to act despite fear. Right? So what I firmly believe is that each one of us can build courage inside us if we want to. I'll now take you through 3 stories from my childhood. I'm much of a storyteller. So I'll take you through 3 stories from my childhood which will exemplify how courage can be built. My first story about how courage can be built. All right. So I was tiny, about 8 years old, and I was in school. I was standing in the school cafeteria line, and just to give you some perspective, I love food. So if I'm waiting in queue for food, I don't want anyone to come in that queue. But suddenly a group of boys from a senior class came and stood ahead of me in the queue. A little not so happy, I tapped on his shoulder and said, "I'm sorry, can you please join the queue at the end?" And it has happened with you when you say something and suddenly regret it? That boy was 2.5 times my size. But now I've said it. So now I stood there. He turned angrily, dismayed at my courage. He pushed me so hard that I fell on the ground. I hurt my knee, hurt my elbow, started crying, ran home. When I reached home that day, my parents could sense that something with me was off. They asked me what had happened, and a little baby in me just broke down. And I told them everything that had happened, how his friends were laughing at me, how I was feeling so torn in that moment. And my father said this. He said in Hindi, "Beta kabhi pit ke mat aana, peet ke aana," which loosely translates to, "We didn't raise you to be bullied. We raised you so that you can stand up for yourself and give back when need be. And if there's anything else that happens, your father is here to handle it." That day, that line taught me immense courage to stand up for myself. That's what it meant. My next story in how I built courage is the story when one of my distant relatives came home. He had seen us after 6 months, and in the last 6 months, he had taken interest in palmistry. Okay? So he asked, "Can I see your hand?" I said, "Yeah, no, why not?" And I gave him my little hand. He saw it for like a couple of minutes. I don't know what all he was trying to imagine. And after a couple of minutes, he said to my mother, who's, by the way, this lady in that picture, she's not going to like it. So he turned to my mother and said, "Please don't mind, but she has a very mediocre. She will never be enough. She will not have a great career, average at best. She would definitely not go places with her work. She would hardly travel." So my mother, who was looking at him, said, "Don't mind, please, but you need to study palmistry more." That taught me courage to not listen to naysayers, but listen to the voice inside you. Fast forward many years, came the day of my wedding. In our tradition, when we are giving away the bride, we often have elder people come and tell you wisdom for the future. So a lot of elderly people said things like, "Be nice, do well, adjust when needed." All that interesting wisdom that people share. And then came the turn of my father, who said this. Again in Hindi, "ज़्यादा कोशिश करने की जरूरत नहीं है, नहीं बने लौटाना." Which loosely translates to, you don't have to try too hard. If it doesn't work out, just come back home. That day, that line taught me the courage to embrace change with open arms, to not be afraid. After this, few years went by. I dabbled with a lot of different opportunities in my career. And I realized that there are three things that I loved the most. The first was I loved meeting new people and making new friends. The second was I loved having fun at work. And the third was that I want to do all of that while seeing the world. Not too much to ask for. And interestingly, that little dream came alive in its full form. Anything I could have asked for and more came true when I got this opportunity to work with Infosys. With Infosys, I joined their university relations team under the mentorship of legendary Mr. N. Murthy, the founder of the organization. And oh my God, that girl who was told that she will never be enough, that she would never travel, all of that. Infosys did not just give me wings, it jet propelled them. I traveled to more than 80 countries with Infosys. I met professors, students, career services in more than 200 universities over the next few years. Throughout those thousands of conversations, interactions, counseling sessions, interviews, I realized that there is one key thing that separates dreamers from doers, from self-doubt to self-assurance, from imagining things to making them reality. And that one thing was courage. With all of that learning, all of those years, I came up with what I call the algorithm of courage. Because I firmly believe that all of courage can be practiced, it can be compounded over a period of time, and it can easily be learned. The first and the most important thing in the algorithm of courage is that your purpose needs to be bigger than your fear. If what you're aiming for if what you're visualizing as success, if what doesn't let you sleep at night, if that is bigger than any fear that you have, you will overcome it. And that delta is called courage. So let me give you a story of purpose. When I joined Emphasis, my leadership team asked me, okay, what's your vision for the InStep program? InStep is the international flagship internship program of Emphasis. And I remembered what my boss had told me. My boss had said, goals, if not audacious, are not goals, they are to-do lists. So I thought, okay, what is it that is my vision for this? And I said, I want this to be one of the leading internship programs in the world. It wasn't in the top list at the time. So over the next 2.5 years, me and my team studied every metric that an internship program should study, every single one of them. We went years of feedback to learn every single thing we could learn. We spoke to every person who is included in the ecosystem of internships. After making hundreds of micro and macro changes, we submitted the internship program to be nominated for the ranking in 2018. 2 months later, I was in the US. It was night. I was sitting when a colleague of mine called me from India, because it was morning in India at the time. He called me and said, Kisha, are you free? I said, yeah. The rankings have come. Okay, what is it? He said, we are number 1. I had to sit down and sink in that moment because 2.5 years of your work was coming alive in front of your eyes in 1 second. But if you have a strong purpose, the purpose will pull you, as Steve Jobs once very famously said. If you're working on something that you truly care about, you don't have to be pushed. The vision pulls you. We lived every moment of that journey and we loved it. So that's what purpose can do for you. And there's a little glimpse of my journey at Infosys so far. The next thing in that list, in that algorithm, is ability to have bias to action. You can't keep thinking. You can't keep waiting for your recipe to become perfect. You have to make it good on the way. Right? I'll narrate that with another story. So we are going now to creating bias to action. Okay. So in the journey of making InStep number 1, we were working with a lot of professors, and a lot of professors happened to be Nobel laureates as well. Now, in one such situation, I really wanted to meet this one Nobel laureate, and he was luckily coming to one of the events in Bangalore. And Mr. Murthy was also attending it. So Mr. Murthy said, Kisha, this person is coming today here. He's about to arrive. Go receive him from the gate. Okay. So I'm in this long gown, in high heels, pencil ones. And I'm hurriedly walking towards the door to get this Nobel laureate in. As I was walking, the lace of my gown got entangled with the heel. And it happened right at the moment when someone said, Kisha, from the back. So I turned and I remember falling down in a swirling motion. And as I was falling down, there were 2 frail arms trying to catch me. As I looked up, those 2 frail arms of that Nobel laureate. Great first impression. So I got up in a jiffy, and the words of my mouth was, it's such a pleasure to have you. Welcome. And he was just like, are you hurt? Are you okay? No, I'm perfectly fine. As we were walking towards the main venue, I realized one thing. Remember that girl who fell in school? And the reaction she had? Because people were laughing. I don't even remember who was laughing that day. Because your bias to action is so strong. You have removed fear from the process. So that's the story of removing fear and action. The next is you have to be open to seeking and giving help. It is very important. Don't be shy. Help comes to those who asked, as the great Albus Dumbledore said in Harry Potter. So, another story, and this is possibly the last story. How many of you have been to Paris? It's a beautiful city. I love Paris. But Paris really slows down when it snows. So, this was February. I was in Paris to meet some people from one of the leading B schools there. And there was this one guy I really wanted to meet. For some reason, he was not able to arrive that day to the school. He was stuck at the airport. So I met his team and a little discouraged. I was leaving from the school. I had booked my taxi because I knew the snow will make it difficult. Talk about traffic. So I was just about to enter the taxi. I was going to Charles de Gaulle, which is the airport, when I saw this man frantically pacing up and down, looking for a ride. He was looking left, looking right. Can I get something? So I gently asked him, do you need help? He said, yes, I have to get to the airport. I said, don't worry, I'm going there. Hop in with me. He hopped in, we spoke. And you know what I realized? He was the super senior of the guy I was hoping to meet. Kindness comes to you in the most interesting forms. For the next many years, we had a great time working with each other. Also with the Nobel laureate, by the way. You know, my running thread with the Nobel laureate, it's an email thread. The title of the thread is The Girl Who Fell on You in India. But all of these stories tell us something, that you can build courage if you really want. And before I go to the last point, which is courage begets courage. All of this, no, if you can't remember this, because it's so many things, all of this sums up in a very beautiful quote, which you can remember. Be original, be daring, be different, be unreasonable, be anything that will assert the integrity of your purpose and imaginative vision. That, in a nutshell, is courage. Before I conclude, I've written a few lines that I would love to read out to you. Imagine a world where no one had the courage to fight the apartheid or oppose imperialism, stand up for women's right to vote, or fight to end slavery. If no one had a dream or the willingness to fight for it, if the 7 founders of Infosys didn't leave their well-paying jobs to found Infosys, I wouldn't be here today. In closing, if you have the courage that you can find within or from your friends or from your family or from the world around you, pay it forward. You will be instrumental in making this world a better place. You would have run what I call the algorithm of courage. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.